Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us with Getting Set Up with Google Education Suite. My colleague Michael Goldie is going to lead the session today. Michael has very kindly joined us, even though he's just had positive confirmation that he has COVID. So if he does start coughing, we're just going to keep going, and I'm sure he'll be fine. So thank you, Michael, for joining us today. I'll put myself on mute, and I'm going to turn my camera off for the purpose of the recording.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Erica. Okay, hello everyone. Today's CPD session is brought to you by the EdTech Demonstrator Consortium based on ourselves at Hambleton, Ribblesdale and Highfurlong. Just a bit of information about ourselves. We've demonstrated a lot of excellence in the use of technology to support teaching and learning, and that then enabled us to be able to offer a lot of remote learning and crisis response support in the first stage, especially when we had lockdown over a year ago. We've got quite a diverse makeup within our consortium. We've got ourselves in primary, we've got Erica, who really supports those SEN needs, and also our colleague Lee, who is a secondary specialist with Microsoft as well. We believe that we are quite well equipped to offer support to all of those phases, including post-16 as well. I feel that as a consortium that we can really give a real-life view on how EdTech can be used to support across the whole curriculum, your organisation, whatever you need. Okay, so today we are looking at getting set up with Google Educational Suite. And what am I going to cover in today's? Well, firstly, we're going to look at the actual basics, setting up a domain in the first place. This is going to look at actually applying for your Google Workspace for Education site license and then actually purchasing a domain so you've got everything ready so that you can start using it. Then we're going to do a bit on setting up users, giving each of those individuals email accounts, put them in the correct directory, just the basics of that so you can get set up and started. And then quite an important aspect now is to create your shared area. We'll probably spend a bit of time on this because I believe it's quite important. And if you get it right, it's quite a powerful bit of software, a tool that you can use within your educational establishment. Then we're going to move on to using Google Calendar for your school. More about the actual shared calendar functionality and how you can use that across the actual school to keep everyone organized, make sure management's done really well. Then we're going to briefly cover Google Classroom, and the reason for that is next week we will talk about that in a lot of detail anyway. Then last couple of things, we're going to look at Google Sheets for assessment and also registers. And then we're going to look at how to develop and make your own Google website for teaching and learning purposes. So first of all, setting up your domain. So the first thing that you need to do is apply for a Google Workspace for Education license. Unfortunately, the fundamentals version, as I've highlighted in there in red, there is free. There are others, as you can see, there's other versions there which give you further tools such as breakout rooms, and there's more advanced tools in Google Classroom. There's plenty of other options. But to get going, the fundamental version will suffice and give you the access you need to get going. Once you have applied and successfully have your Workspace for Education, you are going to need a domain. So a domain is, for example, if you think about an email address, at the end of my email address, it's at hambleton.fcat.org.uk. All domains have to be purchased, and some of them you will need to purchase this domain name, and some of them there's a selection of partners that Google use, including companies such as GoDaddy, Domain Discount 24 and enom.com. You can use a domain name that you already own, or you can purchase a domain when you sign up for the Google Workspace as already highlighted. Just to reiterate, your domain is what your email ends in. So for example, like I said before, mine is hambleton.fcat.org.uk. By going onto these websites, you can check if it's available, and they'll give you a pricing structure for that. Okay. What I would recommend is getting your technical support team to help you configure all the settings when setting this up. Next, once that domain is set up, you pretty much should be ready to go. And at this point, whoever set up the original Google Workspace for Education will have the super admin privileges and can then start adding users and configuring all the settings. Okay, next, we're going to look at setting up users. So at this point, you'll have set up, you'll have the Workspace for Education license, and now you can go into the back of house, start setting things up in the admin area. So before people on your team can sign in and use everything in Google Workspace for Education, they need an account. The easiest way to add a user account is to add them individually in the Google Admin console, as I've highlighted here. There is also an option to bulk add your users with a .csv file, which is like an Excel spreadsheet. Luckily, Google back of house, they provide a template that can be downloaded from the admin area so that you can simply put all your users in and upload them. And if I'm right, you can, if you've got certain settings set up, it can actually upload up to 2,500 users at once, depending on what sort of license of Google Workspace you have. Now, from here, you can also decide what privileges you want each user to have. So this is when we also look at things like the organizational unit. This can be from the basic privileges all the way up to the super admin. This here is really important, the organizational units. You can add them into these separate units. So for schools like ourselves, you may want each cohort set up into separate years, such as our school have done here, as you can see. This makes it a lot easier when you wish to make changes to users in bulk, and it will give you the option about what organization unit you wish to add your user to when setting up their account. Finally, if your school's mail, will be entirely on Google Workspace, such as ours is, you can set up Gmail for your school. It will already come there ready and set up, but you have to do something called redirecting your domain's MX records to the Google servers. Once you go through the process of setting up your emails, your technical team, or I'd recommend asking your technical support team to help you do this, and it should all be quite straightforward from their end anyway. If you don't have that sort of expertise, it can be a tricky task if you don't know what you're doing. Now, at this point, you will be ready to go with the basics, and at least you can get started with emails, etc. Now, because your users are set up, it's very easy to add users to things like Google Classroom or add them to other documents to work on as they are within your domain. We're going to discuss Google Classroom in further details next week. Okay, next slide. Creating the shared area. So I talked about this just at the start and said how important this has been. This has been key. It's been of paramount importance, I think, from my school's perspective, because we now have a shared area which is cloud-based for all our teachers to work on collaboratively, add files to, and it works really well. We've been using it for years, and to this day, we've not had a hiccup yet. So first of all, what is a shared drive? So the shared drive sits in your Google Drive area. Where you can store, search, you can access files within the team. Your shared drive files belong to the team instead of an individual. So once it's in there, it belongs to the actual folder itself. Even if members leave, the files will stay in there. So your team can keep sharing information and work anywhere from any device. The next thing, which a lot of people don't realize, is that you need to make sure that your organization you've got to make sure it's turned on. If your shared drive is that of an organization and you signed it up, or you upgraded your Google Workspace account before July 2017, you might need to turn on the shared drives for users. Now, for details for that, if you go to your Manage Shared Drive Users and Activity, it's a tab within the admin area, you will be able to turn that off and on. But once you've done that, you're now ready to set up your first shared drive. So setting up this first shared drive. So first of all, what you need to do is you need to open up Google Drive. And on the left, you need to click on Shared Drives. And at the top, you would click on New. You would enter the name and then click Create. And you can add people with a Google account as members of the shared drive. New members are given Content Manager access, but you can change that member's access level depending on what you want. What I would recommend is give members who need to edit files in Google Drive for Desktop Content Manager access. All these members can now access the shared drive. If you do wish for some members of staff not to access certain documents, then I would recommend you set up different shared drives based on your hierarchy structure. Now, the next thing I think is the most important aspect of your shared drive, because many of us don't work on Chromebooks. We tend to use Windows or Mac devices. And it's all about Google Drive for your desktop. This is available for Apple devices and Windows devices. What this simply means is you stream the drive files directly from the cloud to your Mac or your laptop PC. It frees up the disk space and network bandwidth. And because all these drive files are stored in the cloud, any changes you or your collaborators make are automatically updated everywhere. You'll always have the latest version, and it works seamlessly. I've been using it for years and it works great. There's an example here in the picture there. As you can see, this is a Windows File Explorer picture there. And as you can see, Google Drive is actually embedded within it. That means that you can save documents really easily straight into your Google Drive file stream. What it means simply is these cached files, they sync back to the cloud when you're online. So the latest version is always available. It's really good. I believe it's a bit of a game changer, as you can simply save documents with a Word, PowerPoint straight onto the shared drive. This also means that you would no longer need a networked drive for staff to organize all their teaching and learning resources. This, in theory, I believe, could save your establishment thousands in hardware. We are currently working with a school who have an old network device, and their IT team is saying that they need to spend thousands on a new network drive. I have to ask the question, why, when you could use something like 365, the online version, or you could also just use Google Drive for desktop? It's a question that does need to be asked, and if it works as well as it does, then why would you need it? I personally think you would have more issues with the physical network drive in this day and age. Okay, so Google Calendar. This is also a great way to keep you and your team organized. With Google Calendar, you can quickly schedule meetings and events and get reminders about upcoming activities, so you always know what's next. Calendar is designed for teams, so it's easy to share your schedule with others and create multiple calendars that you and your team can use together. It's also easy to set up video conferencing, as you can see here, because as the option is instantly available to you. You simply click Add Google Meet Video Conferencing and a link will become available for both you and the other people you've invited into the calendar event. The next thing is probably the most important, as I don't think our school could run effectively without it, and it's our school shared calendar. This is really important, because if you set this up correctly, you create a new calendar, and then as you can see there, you share that calendar with your staff. This calendar will then show up in every single member of staff's calendar area. They will all be able to see the daily operations of the school, and others can also access and add calendar events. Just an important note to make though, when adding new calendar events, just make sure you choose the correct calendar, or it may sit in your own personal one and no one will see it. Okay, next, quick whistle-stop tour through Google Classroom here. This is pretty much what I'm going to be going through in next week's session. I'm going to discuss in greater detail about how Google Classroom can be used within your school, even after COVID lockdowns. I'll show you how to set up your class, adding users, deciding what work to put on setting assignments, the privileges, notifications, feedback, and so much more. And as you know, we still have children, including my own, because they've had to self-isolate, who have to get work sent to them remotely still. So Google Classroom is still an important piece of software which supports remote learning. Further to this, we also use it for setting homework. So I'll go into detail about this in next week's session. So for the final two things that I'm going to look at today, which is Google Sheets and Google Sites, I thought it would be important to show and do a bit of a live demo with you to show how as a school you can get the most out of Google Sheets and Google Sites, which is a website creator. It's not code-based, it's all block-based, it's really easy. But firstly, we're going to look at Google Sheets. So all I'm going to do first is I'm just going to stop presenting. And I'm going to share with you some data. And I'm going to show you how this all works. So hopefully now you should see that this Google test data sheet has been shared with you. This is an example of an early years baseline assessment Google Sheet that I set up. And just to show you the power of this and how it works, you, for example, could put your child's name in here. Okay, so you might fill it in and put John or whoever they are. And here, this is based on what level they're working at, and it's based on 1 to 9. 1 being right at the beginning, 9 being that they're reaching their early learning goals. We have these also set up for the core subjects all the way up to year 6. And for example, if I put in here a 1, then a 2, then a 3, then a 4, then a 5, then a 6, then a 7, then an 8, then a 9. As you can see, what's happening is it is actually creating a heat map. That heat map will show you how well the children in your class overall are doing. And what it'll do is the lighter, the less progress they may have made, the darker, the more progress they've made. This can then pull into this table here, which then makes you a lovely graph down here, which give you percentages about how all your children are doing in certain areas. And like I said, we also have these for the core subjects for year 1 up to year 6, English, Maths and Science, and the foundation subjects. We also have options, which I could share with you if anyone wants to see, of how you can track your pupil premium and your SEN children within your class to see what progress and percentages of progress those children are making. If you do wish for any further information on that, please, at the end of this session, you'll see our Twitter handles and you're more than welcome to respond and let us know. And the next thing that I'm going to look at, sticking with Google Sheets here, is I'm just going to stop presenting and go to another one, is how we use Google Sheets for registers. I'm hoping I'm sharing the right one with you. Yeah. So we now have turned all our paper-based registers into online ones, because in Google Sheets, you can have as many people as you wish to collaborate on this file. It doesn't need saving. It just automatically updates. And if you play it right here, so if I get rid of all these, and I'll show you how they work. You, for example, in here would put morning, afternoon, and then what they're having for lunch. And every time that you tick a child in for the morning, what you'll see is the totals automatically will be totaled up here just by a simple formula. Once they're in, your office manager can see all this and automatically can update whatever she needs to update or he needs to update at their end. It reduces footfall around the school and also reduces paper as well. And it works really well. We've been using this now for about a year, no problems yet, and has worked really effectively. It also works really well because those children on hot dinners, you simply click in there and the dinner lady or whoever's working in the dinner part can then see how many lunches she needs to cook without having to then send a little form around seeing how many dinners. It really does work, and it's a great way of getting an online register using Google Sheets with the educational workspace. So that is all about Google Sheets. And like I said before, there is loads of different things that you can do with Google Sheets. And like I said, I've given you a very quick snapshot, whistle-stop tour of just using it for data in early years. But we also have those forms as well to track data in core subjects, foundation subjects, all the way up to year 6, and which create graphs that breaks down how children are doing in certain subjects. This is really good for subject leaders to see how progress is doing in their subjects, and is a great way to just track it really easily as well. Okay. So just going back to the presentation now. Bear with me. I'm just going to bring this up now. Hopefully you will see that. Let's just double check. Yep, I think that's come back up. Fantastic. So that was looking at assessment and registers, and now we are going to look at Google Sites. Google Sites is another powerful tool within the Google Workspace for Education environment. And one thing that we use it for is for all teaching and learning and how to monitor subjects. Now, as you'll be aware, well, as a lot of you are still doing school, you'll have a big chunky subject file with all of your subject policies in, your intent and implementation impact statement, your vision, all the monitoring you've done. But what can happen is paper can be lost really easily. And actually, when you come to find these things, it can be tricky. So our school at Hambleton, we've decided to make our whole teaching and learning monitoring cycle, and also inputting all the data, because all that data you saw there, onto a Google site, which I'm going to show you now. So first thing I'm going to do is, bear with me, just going to open up a new tab and I'm going to share that with you now. And I'm going to show you how our teachers actually access us as well. So in order for them to access, we call it our school intranet site now. And once you click on here, a member of staff would Google our school. Click on there, and as you can see up here, I've created a link called Teacher Intranet Site. Now, I'm just going to come off that screen because it's bumped up into a, excuse me, it's bumped up into another tab. Now, I'm just going to put that tab on so you can actually see when I clicked on that Teacher Intranet Site link, what came up next. This is it. This is our subject leadership site made from a Google site. In here, it has our school calendar, so people can see when they need to monitor. It has our whole monitoring and evaluation cycle. And then underneath, it's got a digital subject leader file, which includes chronology of actions. And if I go in here, you can see that everyone's subject chronology of actions are all in one place. And hopefully, if you see them, they'll start to be getting updated. Clearly, some of them haven't been done yet because monitoring's not always been done, maybe because of COVID, etc. As you can see here, you'll be able to see to keep an eye on what is going on and so what impact's being made when you are writing a history file of what you've been doing in your subject. There is also other things in here as well. Just bear with me. It's just having a little think. Okay, we have our policy and intent implementation, all our statements in one place, our whole overview academy improvement plan, our action plans, which are really important, all done through Google Docs, so they update live. And as you can see in here, every subject has an up-to-date action plan now, and we can see what impact's been happening throughout the year, which is really good. From someone like myself as an assistant head, I can see what's been going on at the subject at certain parts. I don't have to go down halfway through the school and go and check out someone's subject action plan to find it. It's all in one area, making things really smooth and streamlined. And this is the key to what this is all about. This is the monitoring cycle. So in order to do effective monitoring, you need to be able to triangulate your evidence. You need to be able to do things like pupil voice, your learning walks and your book scrutiny, and you bring all that together and decide what your next steps are, what the impact was, and how you're going to move forward. So what we've done in here is each of the subjects, if they are doing any book scrutiny, these are specific to each of the subjects which we've made. So if I go into maths, what it will do is, I'm just going to bring this back up for you now. It will bring up a Google form, and in this Google form, you can fill in what term you're doing your monitoring. So if I'm doing it autumn 2, sorry. And then I'd simply fill in the form, what year group I'm monitoring. You could be monitoring more than once. You might be doing 2 year groups at the same time. And as you can see here now, we can find out or see if people are keeping to the non-negotiables, high expectations, if the marking policy is being followed, child-friendly LOs. Look, this is a work in progress, but at the moment, it's really helping because once this form's filled in, it creates a sheet back at the house, and then we can see exactly what's going on in each subject really, really clearly. So that is our that's some of the monitoring cycle. We have forms as well for the when you're doing the learning walks, and then we also have a full overview impact form as well. So it's all there. We have a people voice one as well, I forgot to mention. And what it means is by making everything digital, it really streamlines what you do. And it can mean that everyone can come together. We can see that. And if Ofsted were to come in and ask us, right, can you tell me what progress is being made in a certain subject? It'll be easy as a senior leader to be able to bring that information up really quickly. It's not the finished article yet. There are still tweaks that we need to make. I don't think those forms show enough impact, but that's the whole point. It's a work in progress. Okay, so I'm just going to, at this point, just going to stop sharing the screen with you. Bear with me. And I'm just going to finally just go back to one of these forms. Bear with me a second. Show you one more further thing that you can use Google Sites for. Okay, let me just share this with you now. Okay, So going back to that subject leadership site again, going down to the bottom, we have things like subject prompt sheets, which means that if Ofsted come in, this will have all of the basics that you need. This is something new. We've not fully completed, but as you can see, there's the DT one there with all the percentages for what needs to be done, impact so far. You can update these and keep them in one place. And then finally, I was talking about data before. Now I've linked in all the data. So when we do our data collections on three times a year, you will see in here, we have to tracking the subject data in your subject. And as you can see here, there's that reception progress tracker, but also whole school core data, foundation subject data, pupil premium and SEM progress trackers, all in one really neat area. And it does work because they're all just run through Google. Okay. And then I think one more final thing to show you is this. This is all about the planning. So you could also use Google Sites to put all your planning on. You can see we have our progression of key skills in one area on a Google Sheet. They can be quickly scanned over so people can see what progression is in each year group for each different subject. And then as we go down, you can see the medium-term plans for each year group just by clicking on the link. So if I go into Autumn 1, you can see all our medium-term planning. And then finally, we have things like our long-term plans, which just tells you a snapshot about what's going on throughout the whole year, and then our book overviews, because we run a book-led curriculum. So although we're focusing on Vikings and Anglo-Saxons, we do all our work on books based on them. So at the moment we're doing Viking Boy, and that's what will lend itself into everything that we do, because book-led. And finally, this is something we are working on as well, our entitlement experiences, which is all linked into cultural capital. The purpose I'm showing you this is it's all Google Docs based. You quickly can go into it. You can edit things. You don't need to save anything. It's just really smooth and effective to use. Okay. I'm just going to now stop presenting. And I think we're just going to finish up there now. Just bear with me. Okay. Okay, so at this point, we would usually ask if anyone has got any questions. Okay, no problem. So if you do wish for any further information, please feel free to contact us via our Twitter handles, which is myself, Mr. Michael Goldie at Goldie Teach, or Erica at Erica Smith 2019. Alternatively, you can complete the expression of interest form through the EdTech Demonstrator United Learning website, or alternatively, you can also visit our personal EdTech Ribblesdale Demonstrator website. If you would like to watch this video again, this will be recorded and put onto our YouTube channel. And if you want to keep updated, please click like and subscribe, where you'll be kept updated with all of the latest information. Okay, and that is the end of our presentation. I would just like to thank everyone for coming along today, and I'd also like to thank Erica as well for just helping me out and introducing the background. Thank you very much, much appreciated. Is there anything you want to add, Erica, before we finish off?
Just a big thank you, Michael. I know you must be feeling rough, but I really appreciate you coming today. And I think the schools that will be sending this recording out will really appreciate it. So I think you've managed to give a lot of information there. And I hope people will join us next week.
No problem. Yeah. Thank you very much, Erica. All right. Take care for now. We'll see you next week. Bye.